Welcome back to the ballroom. It's very nice to have you back here. My name is Bob Babajanyan. I'm a social protection specialist at ADB, and along with my colleague Okju Jeong, we'll be moderating this session today. So we'll only have 45 minutes for the session because we started a bit late and we don't want to delay the whole program. And before I introduce the speakers, we have a couple of questions for you. So we'll ask you to use your mobile phones to read the barcode on the board there, yes, and you also have it on your desk. So could you please scan this, and we'll read out your answers on the board. So the question is about the barriers to building climate resilience for the urban poor. So I cannot see from here, but I'm assuming the first one is on fragmented governance. So you've got 80% for that. And then inadequate access to climate finance is that, no, it's, yeah, so they're actually quite equal in their weighting. Yeah, so we've got inadequate access to climate finance, followed by fragmented governance, identified as the key challenges to building a resilient climate resilience of urban areas for urban poor. Okay, thank you very much. So with that, we'll proceed with our session. So the topic for today is building climate resilient pro-poor urban systems. And we had quite a bit of preparation for this in the previous session. We had 3 working groups working on particular issues, and these are building blocks. They're conceptualized as building blocks for building climate resilient pro-poor systems. So just to remind you of the questions we had in the previous session, so we were asked about the reforms needed for inclusive pro-poor infrastructure. We were asked about the mechanisms for empowering the women, disadvantaged members of communities to be included in the design of urban systems, and we were asked about the mechanisms through which community-based adaptation could be linked up with governance systems. So, and we will have our representatives from the working groups here presenting the synthesis of their discussions. And I went to all 3 groups, and we had amazing richness of analysis coming out of those groups. So we'll have a lot of food for thought through those working group presentations. But before then, it's my pleasure to introduce His Excellency Kim San-ni, who is Under-Secretary of State and Deputy Head of National Committee for Subnational Democratic Development from Cambodia. And His Excellency will give us his remarks and frame this session based on his experience and his vision of what a pro-poor urban resilience system would look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. It is my privilege and honor for being invited to join this very important workshop on community resilient partnership program. I think this is a third year in a row which I have been participated. So today our workshop is more focused on the urban building climate resilience for pro-poor urban. I think I have learned a lot from yesterday, and from today I would like to highlight and reflect what has been captured and also what I've been learned. It would be a good experience for me to take away when we are back in Cambodia. We hope to design a project or develop a policy or the capacity building that address to the poor in the urban area. I think I can highlight some important points that most of our participants here has learned and listened to the different speakers, including the open remark, also keynote speak from different distinguished guests. Allow me to highlight some important points about the building climate resilience that address the poor in urban area. I think in Cambodia we have developed the national policy on social protection framework that allow the government to target the poor in urban area, especially vulnerable group, poor women that are holding ID poor. So the government developed a cash center program that address to support the women that are facing the social economic shock such as COVID-19, and this also help them to diversify the income when we face the climate shock in the urban area. Also, I think that what we would take away, we have to think about when we design a program that address the climate resilience that help the poor in urban area. We have to think about the systematic intervention. What I mean, systematic intervention, we have to work together from different sectors that in conversion. I mean, not in the silo project by approach. We have to come up with an idea where the government existing system that allow the development partner work on the existing planning process and the financial regulation that would be easy for the local government to adopt and work effectively. At the end of the day, if we have to develop a new system that will allow delay the project implementation and the beneficiary will not receive the support on time. I think systematic intervention is the best approach to develop the project to support in terms of the community resilient partnership program. Also, at the same time, we learn a lot about the decentralization process, whereby in Cambodia we have such mature decentralization reform at the subnational administration. That means community has been involved in the planning process when it comes to the climate change resilience. Normally in the planning process, there's a step whereby the local government consult with the community to access to what we call a vulnerability risk reduction assessment. So this will help the local government to make an investment plan that address the local particular situation. And also we learn that when it comes to the social protection, first of all, in our Cambodian context, I think the government prioritize on the human capital development. I think the human capital development is the first priority from Cambodian perspective. We think that for Cambodian future, we have to invest on the human capital development. So in our social protection program, policy framework, focus on the pregnant women and the children under 2 years old. I think this will allow them to access the kind of nutrition required to make them grow physically and mentally strong. In terms of the enhancing social protection program, also in Cambodia policy social protection framework, we diversify different areas to support, including unemployment, old age, homelessness, and disability. So what I have learned from this forum in our social protection framework, we lack a gap that brought the link social protection to the climate change, to the insurance, and to the disaster risk reduction. So I think from this forum, I will take away such important 3 areas that I think we will be able to work further under our social protection program. Also, the very effective the area that the government of Cambodia also working on under the framework of social protection is the health equity cards. Health equity cards are designed to help the poor in urban, also as well as in the rural area that cannot access to the public health facility. So when you have this card, health equity card, it allow the urban poor to access the public health without pay anything or very minimal expenditure. So that's all from me. The floor is back to you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You mentioned so many different areas, so many different ingredients that you prioritize in Cambodia, and I would particularly like to, it's particularly heartening for me that you mentioned social protection as the sort of one of the core instruments for linking social protection with resilience and promoting adaptation. And we hope to continue discussion for the rest of today's session as well as tomorrow as well. Thank you very much. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague here. Yeah, shall we? Okay, so let's. So now we have presentations from the working groups, and I'm going to ask the representatives of those working groups, the rapporteurs, to identify themselves. So to introduce yourself and present the synthesis from your working groups, please.
Okay. Do we start? Okay.
Please.
Good afternoon, guests and colleagues. I am Director Ellen Basug from the Philippines, and I'd like to, I am pleased to represent our group of 3 subgroups that was composed of representatives in the following countries and organizations: Thailand, Malaysia, Philippines, Timor-Leste, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Romania, and from the development partners, ADB and UNDP. And our group pulled examples from our respective countries for this discussion. Our group tried to answer the question of what reforms and processes are needed to support urban community-based and climate-resilient infrastructure in support of poverty reduction. The first question given to us was, what policy environment is needed to support climate-resilient community infrastructure in urban areas? Our group said that there were 4 types of policies identified: climate, environment, sectoral, and project or investment preparation policies. On the climate policies, this include, for instance, our Climate Change Act, National Adaptation Plan, and local climate change action plans. On the environment policy, we mentioned that there are those addressing solid waste management and even rainwater harvesting. On other sector policies, there are those that integrate climate resilience, such as resilient health infrastructure, housing, and integration and migration policies. On project or investment preparation policies, they require community stakeholder consultation, such as environmental impact assessment, and free and prior informed consent involving indigenous people. On the second question, our group answered the question of what are the key factors for success in implementing these types of policies and strategies, and what are the main challenges being faced. Our group said that challenges identified included difficulty in inducing behavioral changes, constraints in implementation capacity, inadequate coordination and communication, funding shortage, and needing coherence and convergence at the local and national level. One specific example of this is on housing and building resettlement was for communities need to go back to the city for livelihood. Success factors included aligning incentives of the people in the community, reflecting local context and needs, evidence-based designs for policies and programs, and consultations that need to be truly participatory. An identified entry point for the challenges faced was tapping into private sector investment and support. And finally, our question was, how could CRPP support development and implementation of these policies? Our group said that we think CRPP can bring a combination of financing and technical assistance to 3 areas. First is on local level, problem-specific interventions. Second is on funding for implementation of policies. Third would be on guidelines for crises, disasters, and exit strategy. Fourth would be inducing system-level changes. Fifth would be integrated urban planning across local governments. And sixth, strengthening communities and coordination between national and local governments, and also governments and communities. And finally, our group brainstormed that there could be 2 approaches, one being generating and sharing knowledge, such as good practices and even good practice guidelines for integrated urban development plan, and piloting an innovative approach and scaling it up. I hope I had been able to give justice to the discussions that had undergone with our group. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now let's move to group 2.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Chin Nobleza from Catholic Relief Services, and it is my honor to present the Working Group 2 discussion output. We had a very difficult question, and I will share this to all of you. How can poor and vulnerable people, especially women, be empowered to influence investments in pro-poor urban resilience. Collectively, we had very rich discussions and we came up with 6 points. First, bringing community in from the start and throughout the cycle of the project, support community planning and women's participation, and strengthen capacity of how to use technology, such as phones. Support efforts to enable communities in planning and figuring out individual responsibilities and roles, understanding the roles of women and other members of the community, so that when the floods or other disasters come, they are ready to respond. Support documentation, integration of local solutions in national policies, implementation and investment planning. Support the harmonization of data for improved gender-responsive, community-led adaptation and resilience. Finally, engage all levels of government to put women and communities at the forefront. We had rich discussions and good examples from the colleagues in the different countries present in that working group, from Pakistan, Indonesia, India, Nepal, Laos, PDR, Cambodia, and the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Group 2. And finally, Group 3, please.
Group 3. Group 3 had a very productive session. We were tasked with this question: how can community-based or local level adaptation investments can be better linked to government systems in the urban context? To summarize the discussion, we are focusing more on the opportunities for the linkage with CRPP's work, and that can include a more integrated urban planning design that is based on evidence, a system as well of urban planning that considers women in their work, the poor communities, and children. This can be done to a bottoms-up approach as well as a top-to-bottom approach, wherein an intersection between the government and the community can work together in developing plans that are funded. And that's very important to ensure that these plans are actually providing practical solutions that is implemented in the ground. There's also in cases where there is gender budget available for policies or through policies. And through these gender budgets, we can align this with climate resilience work. In the Philippines, this is a particular example where we allocate funds for gender budgeting and aligning that towards climate resilience, but also work on women's advocacy group so that we can increase participation of women, especially poorer women. Thirdly, we also want to focus on more multi-sectoral governance in the planning process, ensuring that in this multi-sectoral governance is a well-represented group involving poor communities, the academe to provide those evidence and data, and also the government. And of course, lastly, if we're going to be testing activities and programs, it's very much important that we fund this. Plans do not work unless they are funded and implemented. So that's for our group.
Thank you very much, Group 3, and thanks to all of you. So as I promised, lots of rich information coming out from these groups, and lots of different subtopics here, so as key sort of ingredients for building resilient urban systems, including issues around governance, sectoral policies, institution arrangements, nuts and bolts of program design, the importance of institutionalizing diversity and inclusion, and so on. So now we'll proceed with the discussion, and I'm going to hand over to my colleague here.
Thank you so much, Bob, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ok Soo-jung, climate change specialist at Asian Development Bank. It's a great pleasure and honor to facilitate this, the second part of this roundtable discussion. So we really encourage open and solution and action-oriented discussions. So you are very much welcome to, to share your perspective and the lessons learned and the key takeaways. we have as per the program, we have already, determined and pre-identified 4 speakers to start with. But if you have any immediate reactions or feedback to share, please signal. So maybe, to start the conversation, so first, it's my pleasure to invite Senator Daisy Alik Momotaro, who is, she is there, and who is a special presidential envoy on gender, youth, and children, and the Office of the President, the Republic of Marshall Island. So she spent, more than 30 years, with, groups, root organizations, NGOs, and now she is really at the head of, the government, the politics, and as working as a special presidential envoy. So, Senator Daisy, and could you please share reflections and the lessons learned for, all participants? Thank you.
Thank you. Before I share my experience, I would like to acknowledge the coordinator of this forum, and would like to also thank for inviting Marshall Islands, RMI, to be member of this very important forum, to share our experiences and also to learn so much. We've learned a lot, even this is the first day. And I also found that, we have so many similarities. As I mentioned this morning that before I became senator and selected to be the president envoy for women, youth, and children, I worked with the umbrella NGO Women's Group for more than close to 40 years. And we had challenges. And it came out from the brothers this morning that those they came from, and sisters from the NGO background, that they had similar challenges we endure, like being alone in implementing our own projects, but we never stopped. But now what I want to share is to, in order for us to empower our women, especially women in the grassroots level, our NGO Women's Group was created to help these women we call from the neighboring island, like the rural area, because we know that, they had so many challenges. And in order to really understand them, we made sure that we find money to bring them because they're from all over the Marshall Islands. We have 24 islands, water separating us. And out of the 24 local governments, we have 22 chapters, would-be chapters that were created. And we had a very good networking. And when we began, the government didn't see the importance of our networking. But now, as we come together and hold hands, we're able to create stronger activities to empower our women. And from our women in the vulnerable group, they're able to help their children and their families. And the first thing we did, of course, we had so many needs, because the needs came out from the annual meeting we hold. And they had so many needs, but we identified the first need was to make sure that the government came up with Domestic Violence Prevention and Protection Act, because we believe that once the woman is in pain, she cannot be effective to take care of her family. So we made sure that there was a law in place that was adopted and enacted. But we were sad because, although the law was passed in 2011, in 2014, we just started implementing with the support of Australian government. We were able to teach the frontliners, first responders like the national and the local police, the mental health, the public school system, all the what's inside the law, their responsibilities. And the law is still going, and we still have the support of the Australian government, and we have like the UN Women and other donor partners. And to continue to strengthen our women. We created economic empowerment of women to help the women in the grassroots level to create their own business. Because, most of the women, as I mentioned this morning, they sustain their livelihoods from making handicrafts. But with the impact of climate change, they couldn't continue making handicrafts when there is drought. For example, I also mentioned that with this material, this is from the women from the rural. They made this and they sustain their livelihood. They put food on the table of their children. They pay tuition and pay fuel and everything. And then we created we were able to find money from Taiwan government, 1 million, so they can make small loan to create small business like sewing, making bakery, baking pastries, and all these, and creating small mom and pop stores and many other things when they were affected by climate change. And another thing we created, I'm seeing that it came out talking about ECD, Early Childhood Development Program. Our NGO group, we started this in 2003, and it's our oldest project that is still ongoing. And we finally had the support of the government and also World Bank when they came on board in 2020. And we have expanded the early childhood program to the neighboring island, and also we are able to have the conditional cash transfer to help the mothers and the children, the prenatal mother to a child who is 4 years old. And also in related to climate change, we had the help of UNDP from the small grant program. We were able to help out of the 22 neighboring islands, our chapter. We were 12 of the islands. They were able to grow replanting of coconut trees, our pandanus trees. These are our indigenous trees that we know that we'll continue to need. Because the NGO Women's Group was really created to be the voice, collective voice of the Marshallese women from the grassroots level, and also to promote and preserve our environment, our culture, and also to create programs to advancement and the empowerment of women in the Marshall Islands. And I'm encouraging, I'm sharing this story because to those NGO, they're still having struggled. Don't give up. We have to lobby with our government that they need us like us, we need them. This is the only way we can, our project can be resilient and continue to sustain the livelihood addressing the grassroots level of the women. When women are poor, the whole family is poor because it affects their children. So we have to all come up with ways to help them. And this is the story from the Marshall Islands. Thank you for letting me sharing it.
Thank you so much for sharing your really engaging experiences. So moving on, let me invite Ms. Brigitte Horman, who is lead for Inclusive and Green City program from Cities Alliance. So as you know, the Cities Alliance is a global partnership fighting urban poverty and supporting cities to deliver sustainable development. So we know that urban poverty has been always the heart of the mission, and particularly with your tagline, Cities Without Slum. And I think that you have a lot of experiences, takeaways to share, and please, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Now I represent the Cities Alliance. I'm sitting here between the two name tags of Adaptation Fund and Green Climate Fund. I am not belonging to either of them. It's a much smaller trust fund that exists since 25 years. It was actually under the patronage of Nelson Mandela, who had this vision of cities without slums. And for him, one important instrument was a vehicle to get there. And this was to foster partnership across key urban constituencies. and they represented national governments, local governments, and the civil society. So the trust fund, the secretariat that I represent, is governed by these three constituencies. They define the strategy for this multi-donor fund. They make the funding decisions and also decide what kind of funding goes into the multi-donor trust fund. So since 25 years, the Cities Alliance is providing grants to the local level. So we heard this morning some percentages of only 10% go to the local level. We did some studies on how much does actually go to the urban poor. This is something between 2 to 3%. Independent of the numbers, which can be always interpreted in different ways, it is little. And the funding that is going to the urban poor and informal settlements is still little. The Cities Alliance Trust Fund was for the first 13 years hosted under the World Bank. And so there are quite some similarities to what Argo presented this morning with the CRPP. So to have a multi-donor trust fund to really do kind of the upstream work, to involve grassroots organizations, the local level, and then inform the investment decisions of the ADB. So for the first 13 years of the Cities Alliance, this was the case with the World Bank, where a lot of city development strategies, plans, etc. have been developed and then followed up. So for us also, even if the trust fund is small, it's very important that the funding goes into local approaches which have a scope for scaling. Now, we participate for the first time at this event. It was very interesting for me to listen yesterday and also today. And I have been asked to give a reflection on areas which I see less covered or very well covered. My reflection from today is that there's a lot of expertise in the room, and basically all the areas which we from our 25 years would have addressed have been addressed here as well. There are a few spaces where I would like to give a nuance, just as an addition to keep on the discussion. So I said we have given probably, I checked this morning, around 500 grants to the local level in 80 countries, and this is based on our experience. We give the grants to the local level and to the informal space. So we also work a lot with community-based organizations, as the presenter, the keynote speaker was here today. So again, a big encouragement, and also from our work, this is the way to go to strengthen the organizational capacity also of the grassroots organization. As Ibu 3 was saying, they are the eyes, ears, and she said the voice. I would add they are also the arms when it comes to implementation and using very small fundings to actually become more resilient. So I think this is a point of encouragement to really strengthen the local organizations. An element which I did not see so much, this might be well in the room, is a stronger participation of the local governments. So for us, they are main constituency, they are always there. There are different ways to involve them. It can be through the mayors and governors themselves. Most of the countries here have city associations that can represent them at a more general level. And then you have regional organizations in Asia Pacific, as UCLG Asbach and other city networks, which are formally accredited also by ASEAN to fulfill the function to bring together the voices of mayors and governors. So they can be a great partner actually also to streamline more the discussions. A point which in our work, of course, in informal settlements is key, and this was mentioned today in the panel discussion, was tenure. This is probably in terms of adaptation, climate resilience, working with grassroots organizations in the informal space, a key topics. Probably for us, this would be on the top of the agenda in discussions. I also mentioned this greater involvement of the local governments because in our work, they are the key counterpart of the civil society organizations, the grassroots organizations. So to use the grant funding to foster collaboration through projects goes a long way in understanding and getting a working relationship. Last point on reflections, we discussed data also yesterday. Today again, there are different discussions of data not being available, data being within different ministries, different sources, not being able to cross-share, needs to have technology investment. What we also see is a lot of people in informal settlements do not want to become part of the data. And we often have there again the grassroots organizations as interlocutor, where people do not want to be seen, cannot be seen. This may have migration backgrounds. Some people are also moving cross-country and do not want to appear yet. But grassroots organizations, again, as said this morning, they are the eyes and ears. They know who and where, and then can also implement the funding respectively. From us, concluding side, we are also working in this space. We are happy to keep on engaging also in terms of networking, learning from each other. We do have these projects on the ground. I'm happy to make the knowledge also available for the ADB and your follow-up projects. For example, in Nepal, there are 6 cities which have a specific Cities for Women project. These can be also areas to exchange where these 2 multi-donor trust funds can exchange and learn from each other. Thank you very much for inviting me today.
Thank you very much for sharing your insight and to learn about how you work with communities and grassroots organizations, and while closely coordinating and collaborating with local government as well. Thank you so much. So moving on, I have a pleasure to invite Ms. Rajeswari Gaurana from Mahila Housing Trust, working in more than 34 cities in India, focusing on low-income populations and communities and sectors related to habitat and urban development, urban infrastructure, energy, and other, the services. I think in this room, we know that in this room, we have many representatives from civil societies and NGOs and etc. So, Rajeswari, this is an excellent opportunity, to promote your organization and also to share your success story and achievement. If you don't want to share your kind of barriers or failure or something like that. But anyway, and please go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you for having me here. I wanted to focus on this fact about mobilizing and organizing communities. This morning, we heard from him about why we need to develop these community interest groups. I think we should be at it, because that is when the voice from the vulnerable communities and grassroots will get into these spaces where there is administrative solution possible, governance solutions possible, where financial inputs are possible. So I think we should continue to work wherever we are, and particularly this is a call for governments and funders, because we seem to be a world in hurry. We want to see result, but we don't have time to invest in social processes. So I think we should invest in social processes. Having said that, I think we should try and see the community groups that come together to understand that these common interest groups can serve as platforms where they can voice what is their need, or let us say the barriers, whatever they experience. So we'll have to, I think the game is in building the capacities of the groups that we work with to articulate their needs very well, which means that perhaps you have to demystify governance, you have to demystify climate change, you have to integrate, development solutions with climate solutions. So I think that is where organizations like our come into play. I think we should give importance to that. The other thing is, I think there should be a concerted effort towards creating those spaces in the local government systems, because civil society organizations might collapse, communities may not have, but unless they're mainstreamed into the governance, at the local government, when they come up with policies or whatever solutions, we have to have those spaces. And unless those are mainstreamed, I think all of this will be very ephemeral. It will be tied to organizations or people. And I think there should be a concerted effort towards that. I'll also want to add another aspect of our work, because we work so closely with the city governments. Our experience has been that, how do you, create a working partnership between the vulnerable communities and the governments? Otherwise, as an intermediary, there's always this pressure from the government to say that, why don't you explain to your groups, that this is possible or this is not possible. And the groups that we work with, they put, they look at us to say that, why don't you speak to the governments and tell them that we need this? The mediation should not be of, someone serving as an interlocutor, but, creating that space where, that partnership builds, which means that the city governments also have to benefit from this. They're doing things better, they're responding to the challenges in a better way. Similarly, the communities themselves are able to see that they have a place on the table. How do we build that? It's a very intense process, let me tell you. We have more than 30 years of experience. It took us long years to bring women to the table and say that, listen to them. You might be, in the government, you might think that, I have these responsibilities, let me implement them. But if you don't listen to them, how are you going to step up your work? That's the point. So I think when we work with government systems, how do we play that role? At least organizations like ours is important. So we shouldn't be, just serving as interlocutors. So.
Thank you so much. I would like to invite Mr. Joy Bailey from the Urban Resilience Trust Fund at the URTF. URTF is an ADB administered trust fund supporting urban poor and vulnerable populations through green infrastructure investment and capacity development and institutional reforms. And the financing, the partner is, the UK government, FCDO. And Joy, you are from the Secretariat of the URTF, but you worked, from the first phase of work, Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund. So please, share your experience and lessons learned, and what makes your, the URTF interventions successful and actually, generate climate outcome on the ground.
Thank
Over
you,
to you.
Ukju. I will try to be quick because it's almost 5 o'clock. I could no longer read my own handwriting. The key messages I received today resonates well with what we know at URTF, and it also resonates well with understanding the ambition and the mandate of the CRPP. I think we sort of call ourselves the sister trust funds because we're both based at the ADB with British taxpayers' money. I'm looking at John. What is URTF? So maybe I could tell more about what was also similar in terms of the key messages in the URTF mandate. So there's the systems resilience emphasis, like when you want a holistic approach, you have to look at the 4 pillars. So there's the physical, environmental, social, or institutional, and also the financial. This is also in alignment with what Bruno said in the plenary this morning. So he said, siloed approaches are not enough. Cross-cutting themes must be done for us to achieve development impacts. There was also this emphasis this morning about working across scales. And then I also remembered the emphasis coming from FCDO every time they visit us in Manila, to be outcome focused. So don't just look at output. Don't just look at how many training can you deliver, but look at what change can it deliver. I mean, what results are you looking after? And then there's also the need to work at the informal settlements. Some people are, some development partners are sort of hesitant to go into that sphere of land tenure, but it's very important to be addressed. And of course, the need for partnerships. For URTF and also the predecessor of URTF, which is the UCCRTF, we've tried to really work with civil society organizations, the academe, and even the private sector. So I'm not going to say everything was a success. We've also had certain failures. We've also had certain challenges, and we're also proud of them. Before I close, this is a special request from Ukju, the key lessons from the Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund, which ran from 2013 until 2023. There's a need to shift from asset-centric approaches towards holistic approaches because it is more effective in building systemic resilience. Second, support to mainstreaming resilience into policies ensures that activities align with the government's objectives. And then the third is embedding resilience or community-driven development at the project conceptualization stage is best entry point for achieving impacts. So community-driven development should not just be an afterthought. It's not like, an ingredient you are towards the last. It should be part of the entire package. So let me close with this message. I often get asked from some project officers or development partners, should we do a community-driven development approach for this project? We can do the cookie-cutter type, the business as usual. And then when they find out that community-driven development takes time, takes effort, takes money, well, they would say, that's transaction heavy. They get daunted. So maybe I'll get to this saying in Filipino. So we say, kapag gusto, maraming paraan. Kapag ayaw, maraming dahilan. So basically, it's saying, if you are willing to do it, there are many ways. If you are not willing, you can come up with many excuses. I close with that.
I think you already, summarized the key lessons of this dialogue session. I'm checking the time, and I think that we can still fit in one more speakers from, the audience. Would anyone like to share, your key takeaways or recommendations for action? Okay. Please don't, try to find excuses, but, please find your, courage to speak. But otherwise, maybe for interest of time, so maybe we can go to, the close of the round table. And we really would like to thank each of you for your valuable insight and experiences and recommendations and participation. Throughout the conversations, a few keywords or themes emerged. So, based on my note, first we would like to mention the importance of the concerted effort, even including, the collaboration with the local government to integrate our actions into the urban governance, or for the case of CRPP or URTF in the the MDB operations, like Asian Development Bank. And also we emphasized some integrated approach and also integration of climate resilience or climate technologies into the urban planning, particularly from the onset of the project, the concept, and the development. And also, we emphasize the, mobilizing finance for pro-poor climate actions, including some gender budgeting or the PPP solutions. So the keywords covers from planning and also our approach and the collaboration partnership, and also climate finance. So once again, we expand our gratitude to all our speakers and participants for your contributions, and a special thanks to our chair and my colleague and Bob and others, and also financing partners and all DMC participants. And we really look forward to continuing this conversation during the last 3 sessions organized by partners and tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Okju and Bob. If I could just come in with a few housekeeping announcements. One is just a reminder that for all ADB-sponsored participants, if we could please have your boarding passes today so that we can process payments by tomorrow, that would be really great. Our team is outside to receive those. The second is that there might be forecast for rain, so the reception has been moved to the ballroom upstairs where we had the lunch. We're really sorry about that, but I think might be less hazardous for all of us if we're inside rather than outside. Third is actually there's a vision board outside. I know that it looks like a really nice backdrop for photos, but it's actually for you to write your vision and where you see, I think, where not just where CRPP can go, but where you would see this kind of work going. So please take a marker and write that message and your vision there before you take a picture in front of that. That would be really great and appreciated. And then maybe just to look forward, tomorrow registration starts at 8:30. We'll have a 9 a.m. start, so you'll have 15 more extra minutes of sleep. But we will see you here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. And lastly, just to say that these 3 sessions that are next on the list are organized by partners, by the Adaptation Fund, Green Climate Fund, and International Institute for Environment and Development on locally led adaptation and how multilateral climate action can actually strengthen local voices. The second choice that you have, because you're a very democratic sort of a forum, is around building resilient communities together and looking more closely at pro-poor urban development and action, which is being hosted by ADB and our urban sector group. And the third is actually a preview to tomorrow, which is the digitization of financial services for climate resilience, which is being hosted by the Better Than Cash Alliance at UNDP. So please do go to those partner sessions. Again, you have a choice of where you'd go, and then we'll see you at the reception at around 6 p.m. at the ballroom. So thanks, everyone, and thanks very much for sticking with us for a very long day. So we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank
Thanks.
you.